Gonna give everybody a few minutes to get jumped on here, and we'll start going with this here. It's the first time I've done a live stream, so this is gonna be a lot of fun. Can't really say I know what I'm doing, but we'll give it a go. We'll see how it goes. Perfect, good to hear. Thank you, Graham. For those who don't know, Graham is a good friend of mine. I paid him extra money to say that as well. And I paid him lots of money to say that as well. But what we're going to do is I've got kind of a loose script to go through and kind of go through some topics, but this is going to be for you guys to decide how you want this conversation to go, what you guys want to talk about. I'm good to go with just about anything. I'm figuring we'll keep this about a half an hour or so. We'll see how the conversation goes. Clean as dirt, what's your favorite video so far you've watched? You're kind of a newer viewer, I think. I've noticed you've been watching a lot, though, recently. What's your favorite one? So, hey, from Ontario. Where in Ontario are you from, Jordan? So, Burlington. I played a football game there once in 2008. I played a football game there. Played against the Burlington Braves when I was playing for the Vancouver Island Raiders. Yes, Canadian Junior Football League. But yeah, so what I've kind of called this is we're going to call this the barber shop, because when you go for a haircut, unless you're me, you sit down and chat with your barber and talk life, talk business, whatever it may be. And this kind of being our first crack at it, it's going to be lots of fun. I like to do in the future this to be something more of, I can bring on guests, so mortgage brokers, home inspectors, insurance experts, and other agents. I think I'll bring those in. Hey, AT, how's it going? So, for example, maybe we'll bring in like a Vancouver agent to talk a little bit about the Vancouver market or Montreal, stuff like that. Have a mortgage broker on to answer mortgage broker questions, all those types of things. So it's kind of where I'm thinking we'll take this segment. But again, I'll leave it up to you guys. If you guys want me to cover certain things, we'll do that. Quick kind of, I guess, rundown of what I got coming up for the next little while. I've got a bunch of videos. I was working on one tonight. But some of the topics I think they're going to be fun to cover. Average income in cities versus average house prices. And let's see how they compare for, okay, the average income is this. Is that city affordable based on that average price? The one I'm working on right now is a bunch of tips I've got for saving for your down payment. And I think depending what you spend monthly, probably save about $1,200 a month you could put forward to a house by just cutting back on a lot of the expenses that a lot of people spend and don't even think about it. So that one's going to go live here this weekend. And the March update will be probably a little bit late. I'm taking a few days off, so I don't think I'm going to have the March update out until about the 7th or 8th. So that one will be coming out a little later. And then what I am working on is I've been building this for a number of months, but I'm going to do a home buyers course that's going to be from the very start to the very end, the process, everything you need to know, checklists, guides, and I'm going to have a bunch of exclusive video content specifically for a home buyers guide. So that's kind of some of the stuff that I'm working on. But what's some stuff, throw in the comments. What do you guys want to see? What's some future videos or topics that you like to cover? What questions do you got? That's kind of what I've got going forward, is just leave this open to you guys. What are your thoughts for a seller in a seller's market handling multiple offers? So this is one that I'm actually think I'm going to do a video. That was a great comment you posted. And this is challenging. There's a lot of different ways to handle multiple offers. Some agents that you'll see where they set a review date. So all showings are going to be starting on Thursday. You've got all weekend to see the property, and then we're going to review offers on Monday, for example. That has its advantages because everybody knows that we got to have our offer, and by this point you put your best foot forward and the best offer wins. I've also seen it handled where we're just going to take offers as they come in, and if we get one we like, we're going to take that. And I've also seen it where, okay, all the offers come in on that Monday. We're going to review all of them. We're going to phone everybody and say, you're one of 10 offers, 12 offers, whatever it is. Would you like to resubmit that offer? Then we'll review them again. Okay, maybe 8 people come back. You're one of 8. And I've seen this process happen before as well. So that's kind of 3 different ways you can handle it. That kind of answer that question there? And I will do a more extensive video on that in the future. It's actually a really good topic. I think that'll be fun to cover. Perfect. Are there, some guests that you would like me to bring on in the future to do this? As like I said, have a mortgage broker come in or something like that. So home inspectors, let me know if there's certain types of people you'd like to have on this and do this in the future. It's kind of more of a conversation. Gabriel, let's check your comment here. Been in the news feed, Bank of Canada. Yes. So the Bank of Canada just had that where they were a little bit concerned with, are we seeing some overheating? It's interesting because I think if you go back about 4 weeks ago, they were saying they weren't worried about overheating. So they seem to be kind of waffling a little bit back and forth on that. There's no doubt that this type of price appreciation, where some places are seeing 20 and 30% increases, that's just not sustainable. It's not going to continue. So that is going to slow down at some point. There's just no economic case for that. But as I've talked about a lot in my market updates, we are still in a situation where there's just a real lack of supply for a lot of different property types. And now the lack of supply in single family, which has been a problem for a number of years in a lot of Canadian cities, is really being exposed as people are trending away from the downtown core and going into those suburban markets. So that's really being shown as a weakness for the supply side of the Canadian market right now. Does that kind of answer that question for you, Gabriel? I hope that does. And I think they also made in that, they talked about how it wasn't frothy like we saw in that 2016, 2017 time frame where things got really heated up in Toronto, Vancouver especially. Other markets like mine and Regina, we were in the middle of a significant price decline. Information on pre-construction investment opportunities. So you're thinking, is that something like, okay, this city's good for investment? Is that kind of what you're asking? Hi, Brian. How's it going? Thanks for checking in. In terms of those new construction condos, is that kind of what you're thinking there with that comment? What else can we go over here? Missed any comments? I don't think I have. Nope, not yet. But no, the pre-construction type market, it depends what you're looking at. If you're looking at those high-rise downtown apartment style condos, obviously those are a little bit longer term from the day that you buy the property to the day that it could be ready. It could be 2 or 3 years. So those are long term, and you're having to put in your money up front, and then you've got to wait for that to be completed before you can realize that investment by putting somebody in there or flipping it those types of things. Yes, you can flip it before. Clean as dirt. Kevin, the mortgage broker from Regina. So funny story about him is that I was looking to do some research on a video and for mortgage related information, and I find this channel that is a mortgage broker and he's Canadian. I'm like, perfect, this is what the information I was looking for. And as I'm watching more of his videos, I realized not only is the guy Canadian, he's from Regina, and then not only is he Canadian from Regina, he works in the same office as I do. We've probably crossed paths a dozen times before this. So we met on YouTube, and now we've become a lot closer friends, and I do a lot of business with Kevin. He's fantastic. And yes, I would like to bring him on at some point in the future. Brian, rates going up. Is this the end of 1.49? If you would have asked me a year ago, are we going to see anything below 2%? I would have said, no, rates can't get any lower. And then, of course, COVID happened and rates went crazy. Are we going to see the rates go lower? I think that's really tough to pull out the crystal ball and say we're going to have rates of 1% for 6 months. They are going up because of the bond market. Now, this is actually more strength in the U.S. bond market that's kind of dragging the Canadian bond market with it. It's not really a sign of the Canadian bond market or the Canadian economy. But, if you have an opportunity now to lock in these rates, 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, I would take advantage of that. I don't think we're going to see rates going up 1, 2, 3%. It's going to go up at 10 or 20 or 30 basis points at a time. We're not going to see huge jumps. So I hope that answered that question. Do you have any predictions of the market like in 2022? If I had a crystal ball that was good enough to predict a year and a half out in the future, I probably wouldn't have to sell real estate every single day. I would be sitting somewhere in a nice warm vacation island versus sitting in Regina when it's minus 40 on a regular basis. But it's all going to depend on how well we come out of this, how well the economy rebounds. Obviously, we've still got a fair amount of government support that has been propping things up. And then what happens when that government support ends? What happens if we have a change in government? There's so many different factors in there. I think it's really difficult to say what's going to happen a year and a half from now. I think it's difficult to make predictions 2 and 3 months from now, let alone a year plus. So I know it's probably a non-answer, Jordan, but it's really difficult to make those types of things. Are you thinking, or are you thinking, when should I get into the market? Is that kind of why you're asking that question there? Put that in the comments and I'll come back to you there. Brian, I'm glad that answered that question for you. What else? One thing I think I'm going to do as well in the future for this segment is I'm going to have the questions that I've gotten from older videos that have been really good questions. I think I'm going to go through a couple of those in every one of these videos. So it'll have a chance for some people who have asked some really good questions for me to kind of explain those answers that I had in the comments in this type of format. So I will be doing that as well. From your experience, has the stress test slammed a lot of buyers? The stress test sucked right off the bat. When that came in, at least for my market, we were already in a declining market, and then the stress test came in and hit us really hard, and it lopped off a lot of buying power for buyers. So for example, somebody who could purchase in my market a $300,000 house, which is a really nice house in Regina, that gets you a really good house, good, single family home, double detached garage, nice neighborhood, that type of thing. All of a sudden you take away 20% of their buying power essentially overnight, and now they're not looking at $300,000 houses. Now they're looking at $220,000 to $250,000 houses, and those are different neighborhoods. They probably don't have the garage, so that hurt us a lot in our market for sure. We had asked for a long time for it to be regionalized because the conditions in Vancouver, and that the stress test was put in a lot of ways to slow down those markets. Well, it did have some effect. You can look at pricing and what it did, but then it hurt other markets like ours significantly, which were already depressed. So that didn't help that stress test. I wish it was a little bit more regionalized or market centric. So it was more dynamic, but it's tough when you got a federal government policy that's designed to kind of cover everything. So I hope that answers. Jordan, so he's looking to get into house hunting next year. You'll hear me stress a lot in terms of don't try to time the market. You'll almost never succeed. It's so tough because you don't know when you've hit the peak or you don't know when you hit the bottom until you're already past that for the most part. If you're looking at getting into the market next year, focus on, is buying that house, is it going to improve your life? Because if it does, that's good. Buying a house is a lifestyle choice and it should improve your lifestyle. If it's not improving your lifestyle, that's maybe not the right time. And if you're going to be in the house for a longer period of time, it's going to smooth off ups and downs of the markets. But if you're only going to be in for a couple of years, maybe it's not the right time. But if you're there long term and it's going to change your life, it's going to make your life better, that's a good reason to be buying a house. So Brian says, July is too far out for me to lock in. Unfortunately, yes, that's true. You're typically going to see like 3 months for rate holds on there, but I still think that you're not going to see much more than like 20 or 30 basis points between now and July. It's not going to go up 1%. So depending what purchase price you're looking at, so say $500,000, and the reason I'm doing that is because I just worked this out. On a $500,000 purchase, a quarter point interest rate bump works out to about $50 a month of additional payments. So it's not like it's going to sink a lot of people. If the difference between buying a house and not buying a house is a $50 a month difference in payments, maybe we got to work on the finances and make sure we're a little more prepared. So hopefully that helps there, Brian. What else? Clean as dirt. Worth more videos from real estate agents, mortgage brokers. Do you find that buyers are more informed than 5 years ago? Ooh, that's a good question. Are buyers more informed? You know what? My company, Royal LePage, does a lot of research demographic-wise on buyers, what they're looking for, what type of makeup they are. And it was an interesting stat that this was a couple of years ago that this came out, or that they'd done this research. A millennial age buyer on average spends 6 to 8 weeks looking on their own, doing their own research, looking at houses before they engage a real estate agent or a mortgage broker. They come to me, I find, a lot more educated than I generally expect they would be. A lot of times they've already got 4 or 5 houses they want to see, and I would say maybe not 50% of the time, but a large percentage of the time, we end up buying one of those 4, 5, 6 houses that they had already been looking at for a couple of months, or a couple of weeks. So it's interesting to see how informed they are because they're doing a ton of research on their own. But I started this channel because I wanted to continue to educate people and give people the opportunity to know as much about real estate before they got into the process, because there's so much going on. There's so many moving pieces, and the more information you have, the better. And that's, I think, a slam that you'll hear against real estate agents, is that, you know, we hide information, or we don't inform people enough. And I don't believe in that. I believe in being as open and transparent and providing as much knowledge as I possibly can to everybody I deal with. So that's something that's really important to one of my core values. Brian, is there a smart way to buy new builds and flip every few years? So are you buying this, or I should say, if you're buying this to live in, then you have a huge advantage, because as of right now, there is no taxes, income tax implications for selling your own home. There's no capital gains tax. But if you bought a house and you're not living in it, then 50% of any profits are taxable under capital gains taxation. So if you build a new house, you live in it, you sell it a few years later, and you realize profits in that, you get to keep that. And I've got a friend that has done that since he was about 20 years old. He has built a house, lived in it for 3 or 4 years, and sold it. And he keeps doing this. And he works for a construction company, which helps. He runs a building company here in town, so it helps keeps his costs down. But he's done it every few years, and every year he's walked out. Every time he's done this, he's walked out with some money to put towards the next one and reduce his mortgage payments. In this case, he's just built a nicer, bigger, fancier house, but that's what he's done every single time. Where is it here? We're going variable for the next year or two be a good idea and then lock in later. That is more dependent on your risk factor, what you're comfortable with. If you're okay playing that little bit of a gamble, there's some advantages to going with a variable rate if rates are going up and down. You do have to look at, though, payout penalties for fixed rates versus variables are very different. So you want to know when you book that mortgage that you know what those payout penalties are going to be, because that can be really expensive. You probably heard some stories in the news where people got hit with payout penalties of like $10, $20, $30,000. So any profit you gained from the appreciation of the house or any money you saved in interest gone like that if that happens. So that's one thing as well. And there's an advantage, a comfort factor, knowing what your interest rate is going to be for 5 years. So it just kind of depends what you're more comfortable with, but make sure you know going into it what the payout penalties are going to be if rates change and when you pay out or when you go to break that mortgage, if you do, before your term is up. So look into that. Do you think that banks will allow, Paul asked, do you think banks will allow 40 or 50-year amortizations? The amortizations have changed so much. It wasn't that long ago that you could do 35 and 40-year mortgages. I think you went as long as 40. And then they had started at 20 years and they went up and then they've come back down. I don't know. It's so tough, I think, to predict fiscal policy. The reason that they had brought the terms down was, again, a policy designed to make housing monthly payments more expensive to slow down price appreciation. If all of a sudden we can't raise interest rates and they want to slow down the housing market, changing amortizations could impact that. I'm just not sure if they're going to go to 40 years. I could see maybe a 5-year bump. That's part of what they'll do them in is 5-year increments if they're going to change anything. So I hope that helps there, Paul. And Jordan, I'm glad that answered your question. Has oversupply inventory issues been resolved in Regina, most specifically single family homes, and do you see prices increasing 5% by the end of the year? Yes, the oversupply problem in Regina is absolutely being resolved right now, and it has been getting better. So 2018 was kind of the worst. For those that don't know, the Regina real estate market, in 2012 we peaked in our pricing, and from 2012 to 2019 you saw a price decline of about 25%. It was a very significant correction for us. It was one of the most significant corrections we've had, and driven mainly by an oversupply and a weakening economy. So for example, I'm going to pull up some numbers here right now. In 2018, what did we have for inventory? In the month of February, we were actually a little low, but that was unusual. We had 1,100 houses, almost 1,200 houses on the market. And to start February 2021, we had 780. And that number has hardly changed. We started the year at 794, then we were at 780. Today we're at 806 houses in the market. So we are seeing low inventory, and single family homes are selling well. I have written offers with 10 different buyers so far this year, and 8 of those situations have been competitive. So, and all of that except for one of them was a single family home. So just one was a townhouse condo. So yes, Regina market is getting better. Will prices increase? I do think we are going to see prices increase in Regina. 5% I think might be a conservative estimate on price increases this year. So I wouldn't be surprised to see 7, 8, 9% price increases this year. That is, of course, excluding any weird government policies that could change, wildcard policies like that. I can't make any predictions on that, but if things continue the way they are, expect price increases in Regina. Corey, appreciate your channel. Question for the Regina market. The market today, are we closer to the higher prices of the last 5 years or to the mid-range? We've got a lot of ground to make up still. So if you look at prices in Regina in February of 2016, which was actually kind of a little bit of a bump up. They were 285 was the benchmark price, and we're about 270, 265 right now. But we were closer to $300,000 in 2012. So we still got a long ways to go. We've made up some ground, but we got a ways to go. dropped about 25%, and we regained about 10% of that last year. So we got about 15% to go there. So I hope that answers that question, Corey. Al Pacino, like the name. What do you think about prospects of the Montreal plexes for the future? So I've got a really good friend in Montreal, and he talks a lot about their market, and they have had across the board a real problem with supply. And just to kind of demonstrate that, let's pull up my Montreal stats here. In January, for example, of 2016, they had 30,000 properties on the market, and today that number is like 11,000. So they're really, really low across the board. You're going to see price increases in Montreal until you see a shift in that supply dynamic there. They're just so undersupplied right now in Montreal. They would probably sell more houses if they just had more to sell. This friend of mine, his wife is also an agent. She wrote an offer on a place. They wrote $150,000 over the asking price. There were 46 offers and they lost. So that's kind of what's going on in Montreal. It's crazy. Oil price at $62 a barrel. I don't follow oil prices. I probably should, being from Saskatchewan. This Stephen might be a little bit of a spam account. I'm not sure. But oil prices are obviously very important to the Saskatchewan market. Yeah, Brian, detached homes, those are selling across Canada right now. It's crazy what's going on with detached homes. And because that's been an undersupplied segment of the market, that continues to be exposed as a weakness now, because there wasn't a ton of supply for those to begin with. Now as demand shifted away from the downtowns to the suburbs, single family homes are just going through the roof right now. So that's what's going on with those. I like we got 2 questions on the Regina market already. That's awesome. I didn't actually expect to have questions specific. I figured if we're going to get questions, it's going to be Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, those types of things. So it's nice to answer some questions about Regina. What else? Let's talk about some other things I got coming up. Another thing I'd like to eventually do is kind of similar to this, is do a podcast, and we'll bring on again guests from across the country, different market segments, different, again, mortgage brokers, different and industry experts. So that's something I'm looking at doing in the future as well. Al Pacino, what renovations are worth doing when buying a rental property? I think you have to look at what is your what type of tenant are you looking for, because that is going to determine what is going to be important to do for renovations. But of course, as what sells houses also sells rentals, nice kitchens, nice bathrooms. Those are very helpful. So keeping those up to date, but also make sure it's stuff that's durable, that's going to last, because it's not hard to damage flooring or damage countertops. And obviously those are very expensive items to fix and replace. So you also want something that is going to be durable. I hope that kind of answers that question there with that. Paul, thank you very much. I have enjoyed this channel. This has been quite a journey for me. I started this 1.5 years ago. I had zero expectations of people actually watching these videos, and to see the amount of views I've gotten now is mind-blowing to me, that people spend that much time listening to me. So it's been pretty cool, but thank you very much, Paul, for watching. Another comment here. Planning to get a second property in Barrie as investment. What should I target? What will leasing be worth? I don't know the Barrie market very well, so I don't think it'd be really right for me to make a comment on that. And there's a ton of different investment strategies. There's guys that want cash flow. There's BRRRR type methodology. There's guys that just want to buy and hold on to these properties. So it kind of depends on your investment strategy. Clean as dirt. How do you discuss with clients as the seller's agent about pricing their home? Ooh, this is a fun one. How do I go about pricing? This, I guess, depends what kind of market you're into. So I've come from a market that's seen declining prices for a long time now. I started in real estate in 2012, and our market's basically peaked there, and I rode the wave all the way down to last year when we finally saw some price appreciation. But there's kind of, I guess we'll call it the 3 P's of selling a house: price, positioning, and presentation. So price is important, obviously. You got to price it according to the market, and that's where positioning comes in. Best example I can think of, one of the first houses I ever sold, I had done all my comparables. I had looked at what was going on in the market. I knew we were in a declining market, so I had to be price sensitive. And this house was a great little house, backed onto a schoolyard. And so I came in with this seller, and I sat down and said, here's where I think we should price it. And literally the same day that I put this house up for, or we're going to put this house up for sale, the neighbor across the street, which had the exact same floor plan, it wasn't as nice as my guys, and it backed a freeway, not like my guys were backed apart. They priced $10,000 higher than us. And so I said to my seller, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to raise our price a little bit? Maybe we match their price. Ours is going to look better in comparison. Or do we keep our price where we're at? And he says, you know what? I'm moving out of town. Let's get this house sold. That's more important to me than the $10,000. We priced it at where we originally planned. We had it sold right away. The neighbor, by pricing their house $10,000 higher, basically sold our house quicker because it made us look so much more appealing. So that's the positioning in the market of the P's. And the last P, presentation. Good, well presented houses will sell better, no doubt about it. I've been in places, like for example, back to back showing townhouses that are identical. The one that presents better is more likely going to sell. So presentation of your house is so important, whether it's a hot market, and it's even more important in a slow market. It's got to be clean. It's got to smell nice. It's got to be bright. I mean, having all the light bulbs working. I've been in houses, you flip the light switch and half the lights come on, doesn't show very well. When you walk into a house and they've already got all the lights on and it's super bright in there, maybe they're playing some music, all the surfaces are clean, everything's put away, makes a world of difference. So I hope that kind of answers that question. Having a new build finishing in fall, do you recommend any simple upgrades that I should be adding when I sit down with the designer? So this is N Lights 6. Are you planning on flipping this in the future? I guess that's the question, because that's going to change. But if you're keeping this long term, do upgrades that make your life better. So if you want a bigger bathroom, do that. If you want a certain type of flooring, do that. That's what I'd be focused on. If you're trying to get it so you can flip it in the future, you want it to be as appealing to as many people as possible. So go with neutral color choices and go with design choices that are going to be popular to as many people as possible. So for example, light and bright and neutral type colors are what's in right now. Going with crazy bright neon colors, that might not be good. Is there any hope of prices staying the same or going down a little bit in the Toronto market? Unless there's a change in demand and supply, no, you're not going to see prices go down or stay the same. We're just seeing too much demand right now across the entire GTA. So unless there is government policy that comes in, or we have a significant lockdown, those types of things, that's all it's going to change prices this year. Leo, thank you. Appreciate it. Nice to hear from you. And it's nice to hear from another Regina real estate agent checking in on the channel. So let's see if I missed any comments here for anybody. I don't think so. So this question has come up here second time. The Bank of Canada with the warning of the potential for this being a hotter market. Are we seeing overheating, that type of thing? This, if you look, 3-4 weeks ago, Bank of Canada came out and said, no concerns with overheating. 3 weeks later, they kind of changed their tune a little bit here. They did say how they didn't feel this was as frothy and bubbly, I guess you'd say, as 2016, 2017. So I'll have to defer, I guess, to what they're saying. They are obviously nervous. We can't see price increases of 20 and 30% a year. That's just unsustainable. So at some point, this is going to slow down, and you're going to see more reasonable price appreciation. I'll tell you from a realtor perspective, I'd rather see consistent, 1, 2, 3, 4%, 5% a year, whatever it is, price increases. Predictable markets are way easier to work in. It's also better for both buyers and sellers to have a better idea of what's going to go on. These swings back and forth, they're more challenging to work in. Again, I worked in a market that was seeing declining prices. We hit pandemic, we hit lockdown, and then we opened the doors and it turned immediately to a seller's market. It was crazy how fast that switch happened and how much of a challenge it was mindset wise to go from working in a buyer's market to working in a seller's market for myself and also for buyers and sellers. That was a tough change. So, but yeah, to answer your question, Bank of Canada, obviously the economics don't work for this to be 20 and 30% increases in perpetuity. Clean as dirt, shout out to your beautiful wife. Thank you very much. For those that don't know, the reason I started this channel was actually my wife pushed me. She goes, I think you'd be really good at this. You're good at explaining things to people. Why not give it a try? And so I did. And she's been, as I call, quality control. She's the one who I review a lot of my topics with and my ideas. This set that's behind me here, this was all designed by her. So she puts this stuff together for us or for me and make sure that everything kind of looks right. And if I have topics I'm not sure on, I would run them by her. So thank you very much for that. Sorry, I missed a question there. You missed a question earlier on wood prices. Yes, we already are seeing material increases causing new construction prices to go up. So things like MDF, drywall, lumber, all those types of things, as those increase in price, you are going to see that reflected in sale prices. Southern Ontario housing market forecasts, par of the course. I think that's what you're going to see here, is until we see a big shift in demand, which has been really, really strong right now, and you see a shift in supply, a huge surge in supply, Southern Ontario is going to continue to be crazy, much like it has been. What do you think about Richmond, BC for rental opportunities? I don't have a ton of experience in Richmond. I don't really do a lot. I don't work in there, obviously. So I can't really make a comment on the rental market. I wish I could help you there. Sorry, Sean. Have I missed any other questions? We'll keep going here for another 10 or 15 minutes here. We got some good questions, but after that, we'll wrap it up. I still haven't eaten dinner yet, so it'll be nice to get some dinner in. What have you guys thought of this kind of format, open session Q&A? What types of other topics, I guess, do you want me to cover? That type of stuff. Paul, downtown luxury condos. I'm guessing you're asking what I think is going to happen there. I've heard that the condo market is starting to see some rebound kind of across the board, specifically stuff downtown. The condo market in Vancouver was categorized, I would say, incorrectly as being very weak a few months ago. Outside of the downtown core, the condo market was actually still fairly good. There was the downtown core that was a problem. And from talking with friends out there, we are seeing the return of buyers and stuff like that. So that's going to continue to push things there. I think as you see immigration start to open back up, as you start to see the borders opening back up, you're going to have just more demand across the board. And Vancouver obviously is a major destination city, not just for tourism, but for international students and people moving in. 50% of all new Canadians go to Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal. So when the borders open back up, that is going to impact those cities significantly. Awesome to hear. Bought a place in Montreal and that my videos were helpful. That is fantastic. I appreciate that helped you. Do you think there is much more room for house prices to increase? House prices here in Southern Ontario outpacing wages. Yeah, this is a topic that I think a lot of people worry about, housing affordability. And it should be something. We are seeing prices increase faster than wages like you talked about. And how much longer can this continue? The lower interest rates make housing more affordable. And because most people think of housing in a monthly payment, not in a total purchase price. So with rates dropping, that was a temporary shot in the arm because all of a sudden your mortgage was going to be lower and the prices hadn't increased yet. And that's part of what you saw, some of that demand. But there will be a point where a couple of things are going to happen. Pricing is just going to be too much and people are not going to be able to afford that. And you're going to have to see prices come down, or you're going to see home ownership rates start to decline because only higher income brackets can afford to buy houses. And I don't think either of those situations are good. And a lot of people say, well, real estate agents want prices to go up forever. I don't. I would rather, I mean, people say, well, if house prices go up, you make more money. Okay, sure, I will make more money if a person pays $10,000 more for a house. I'd rather just two people buy a house. I make twice as much money versus somebody paying $10,000 more. So I'd rather more people buy houses. I'd rather more houses be affordable so as many people as possible can buy houses. That's just my personal opinion. Numbers question, $400,000 property, $1,500 a month rent. Is that a good ratio? Do you think it's overpricing U.S. properties ROI? You know what? It depends what your strategy there is, Sean. If you're looking for cash flow returns, that is obviously, you hear people say you want it, 1% type of thing. So if you're looking for positive cash flow, that probably isn't getting you where you want to be. If you're holding this long term and you're hoping for market appreciation over time, that's going to be up to you whether that makes sense to continue to hold that property long term. Love to hear about buying, selling stories, how to work with a realtor. I know you covered it, but interviewing a realtor. Buying, selling stories. I'm actually, for April Fool's Day, this will be a little kind of a sneak peek for you guys. I'm doing a bunch of stories I've been collecting. Some of these are my stories. I'm not going to tell you which ones are. And I phoned out to a ton of friends to give you some very, very funny stories for April Fool's Day of things that have happened in showings or in deals. So look forward to that one coming up. I think that's going to be pretty interesting. And how to work with a realtor. That'd be an interesting one to do. Different ways. Honestly, though, be upfront. Set your expectations with your realtor. What do you want from that person? How often do you want to hear from them? What are you looking for? What's important to you? How do you want to be contacted? Just set those expectations. I find one of the biggest challenges is, for example, a buyer's told me we want to look at $250,000 houses, and all of a sudden they're sending me links to houses that are $300,000, and you're going, wait a second here. You told me our budget was $250,000. Why the switch now? And that's challenging. So always just be upfront, open and honest, and be proactive. And if you're not getting what you want from that agent, tell them, hey, these are my expectations. And I'm a big person that writes things down. There's my iPad. I write everything down on my iPad when I meet with a buyer, what was important to them. And if things change, then I say, hey, when we first met, you told me this was your expectations, or this is what you're looking for. Have things changed? So that's important to me. What are your thoughts on buying duplexes, first-time home buyer? I actually really like this idea. If you have an opportunity to get into a property where you can have an income element to it, so whether it's a basement suite, duplexes, because somebody, yes, is going to pay down that mortgage, it's a great financial opportunity. It's just whether you want to do that, because again, buying a house is a lifestyle choice. And so some people, they don't want to have neighbors, they want that house to have their space. But I like this idea. One of my good friends, every house he's ever had has had an income component to it. That's important to him. So, and the house that, one of the houses, I guess I should say, that my wife and I have thought about buying, we're kind of kicking around what we're going to do for us in the future. We are buying a house this year. Is, do we buy a house with a basement suite in it, that type of thing. So that's even in my thought process. Imagine just graduating from university, college, and trying to buy a home without parents. Good luck. Yes, that can be challenging. We have here in Saskatchewan a couple of good programs that I really like. If you are a Saskatchewan, if you go to school in Saskatchewan, you stay here, the government of Canada, or the government of Saskatchewan, will give you $20,000 in income tax relief as long as you stay in the province. And they did have a program, and it was only available for 1 year, and I really wish they would bring it back. But you could take $10,000 of that $20,000 up front to use as a down payment for a house. And if you're looking at a house prices here in Regina, where it's about $300,000, buys you a really nice single family home, you don't need to save up much more to have that down payment. So I really like that program. I wish they'd bring it back. I thought that was a good use of public policy and dollars. So I wish they would do that back. How do we calculate depreciation offset taxes rental? That would be an accountant question. I can't answer that one for you. So I refer that to an accountant. It'd be very useful to have some videos around how quickly identify the problem in a property, like structural issues, leakage, that type of stuff, with just 50 minutes of your property. I actually have done a video here. I'm going to link that one for you on what to look for in a house. Give me 1 second here. Let's pull that video up. You can check this video out. I think you'll find it really valuable. Where is it here? A lot of time. Here, check out this video. Where'd it go? Of course, this crashed on me. Sorry, guys, my web browser crashed and I have lost all the comments. And so I can't respond all of a sudden. So I have no idea what happened there. But let's see if I can pull this back up here. Okay, sorry. So I don't know what happened, but my web browser is crashed and I cannot comment in the chat session all of a sudden. But Darshan, if you check out, I've got a video. It's called What to Look For When Buying a House in Canada. Check that one out. I go through structural issues, big expense repairs, stuff like that. So check that video out. You'll find it very valuable, I think, there. $300,000 gets you a dumpster within a 200-kilometer radius of Toronto. Yes, I understand my house prices in Regina are significantly cheaper than a lot of other places in Canada. And it's one of the reasons I am happy to live here, because our cost of living is way lower. The benchmark price is $270,000 in this city. And like I said, $300,000 buys you a really nice house in Regina. And so does rest of Saskatchewan. You'll find a nice place for, good affordable prices all across the prairie. So there is some advantages to living in the cold weather that we have here. We have much more affordable housing. What else have I missed here? I'm not sure if you did this story, but a video showing what to do from starting with a client to the end. You know what? That would be a fun video to do, a kind of a day in the life type stuff. I've kind of planned some videos out like that, jumping in the car, driving around, going through kind of my daily life. So I am going to continue to do stuff like that. Love the videos and the jokes that come with them. I love my jokes. So if you've got good ones, throw them in the comments. Those are always fun. We'll go here. Let's go another 5 more minutes here, and we'll wrap this up here. So let's go. I don't know. We'll probably do 2, 3, 4 more questions. You can throw those in the comments, and we'll get those answered for you. Speaking of car, what do you drive? I drive a Volkswagen Golf. I'm not a flashy guy. I don't like showing off. It's not really my style. So I drive a Volkswagen Golf. If you know Volkswagen Golf, so it's a Golf R, which is kind of more of a special edition model. It's an all-wheel drive, which is fantastic in our weather to have all-wheel drive. So that is what I drive. Hey Matthew, did you have a haircut? Yes, I did in 2008. That was the last time I had a haircut. For those that don't know, I have what's called alopecia. I've had it since I was a kid, and it is a autoimmune disorder that prevents me from growing hair. When I was younger, it would fall out just on my head, and then in 2008, it was like top to bottom. It fell out in about 60 days, and I haven't had hair since then. No, I had it all cut. I like that one. That's a good joke. What do great affordable contractors have in common with UFOs? You always hear the stories about them, but no one has actually seen one. That's pretty funny, but I do know a couple of good contractors that are good prices. Okay, we'll take one more question here and then we'll wrap this up. So whoever gets the next question in, you get the last word of the day. Yes, clean as dirt. I think we're going to do this once a month is kind of what I'm thinking. So it'll be a lot of fun. Now I've learned a lot from this. I kind of have some better idea how to handle this. But this has been a lot of fun, and I appreciate everybody that has taken the time to come on here and ask questions, and all of you that have watched the videos. I really appreciate it, especially the awesome comments of support. I appreciate that a lot. A lot of you have emailed me or text messaged me with nice, kind words. It sure makes up for the negative comments that you get there. There's a lot of those and a lot of keyboard warriors. So all of you that have taken the time to write nice things, I really do appreciate that. With that, though, seeing as we don't have any more comments, I'm going to wrap this up and get myself some dinner. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Let's plan to do this again next month. Have yourselves a great day, everybody.